This is an exciting session. I've been waiting for months to put this, to have this time with you. The theme of today's summit, I think, is very appropriate. It's co-creating our present and future, co-creating our present and future. All the speakers and authors we have here today are on top of that theme. It's something that we all ascribe to. And we want to really basically build the energy up for all the participants so that you understand that during these times, difficult times, that really we all need to support each other. We all need to be able to reach out and support. And this is what's been happening.
I'm excited and honored to introduce our second speaker, Dr. Kevin Gazzara. He is the CEO and founder of Magnet Leadership Solutions, former manager of Intel University US and first level, mid-level leadership program, co-author of the book, The Leader of Oz, right here, great book, and teaches in 5 different universities, a great drummer, and loves to do jam sessions on his personal time. So Dr. Kevin, thank you so much for being here with us today. Take it away.
All right, Kinsey, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for being here. I didn't know I was going to get quite that introduction with all of my personal history, but thank you very, very much. So today I'm going to start my clock so I keep this under 20 minutes for everyone. All right. So one of the things that I've learned as a coach, as a leadership professor and teacher, is that you have to kind of set up the story. So here's the story for the next 13 slides. And my promise is that I will keep it under 20 minutes so we can move to the next speaker, and hopefully I can get lots of information in a short period of time. One of the things I've learned is this awesome technique, and I thought I'd share it with you so that you can use it as well, from a gentleman by the name of Park Howell. And Park, if you want to follow Park, he has an awesome podcast called The Business of Story. And he talks about how do you tell your message or provide your message in a story format. And he loves this 3-part approach, and it's the and, but, and therefore. So I'm going to start out my presentation with those 3 elements to set up what I think you're going to enjoy for the next 17 minutes and 57 seconds. So at the end, which I think Wayne has set up very, very well, is that COVID-19 has really changed our working world for today and possibly forever, right? So that's kind of the situation we're in. But despite all of our efforts to cope with the change, we're still stretched and stressed. That the people that we work with, with our Leadership Academy that we do for organizations around the world, that we're doing now on Zoom versus in person, people are working with less resources, more pressure, significant unknown, and the stress level, as Wayne has quantified, has gone up, and they feel very, very stressed and really quite powerless. So therefore, what we really need is kind of a new mental operating system to turn kind of these internal and external threats that we have into opportunities, that we're really looking at things kind of as a gift. And in the difficult times, it's, I think, very challenging to do that. So my goal is to give you my gift of something that I've learned several months ago, and I've been applying both for the people that I'm teaching in leadership, as well as individuals, executives that I'm coaching, that has worked incredibly well in this journey. And the concept is around positive intelligence. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 16 minutes. Many of you are probably familiar with the concepts of emotional intelligence. And essentially the way to think about positive intelligence is a way that it's really kind of an operating system that sits on top of emotional intelligence so that you can build your emotional intelligence as well as a whole bunch of other areas that you'll see in the next couple of slides. And this is termed as PQ. The other thing I wanted to point out is at the bottom of my screen, hopefully you all can see that, is there is a summit link for all of the materials that I'm going to talk about in the presentation, assessments and so forth. They're all there for you for free to access. So that'll stay on the screen. Now, one of the things that I love to do along the lines of kind of this wellness approach that Wayne and Dr. Bob have talked about is I like to make things simple, take really complex ideas and try to simplify them. And in the model that I use, as I think about myself and for people that I'm coaching, is that you need to think about your life as kind of as a pie. And there's really three key elements. All of the pie areas don't have to be the same. I would contend that you have to have at least a portion of the three. And I think the more in balance for your situation, the better. So if I look at health, self, and wealth, health, I define it as really kind of mental fitness and physical fitness, right? So do you have a balance there? Self is really about developing kind of your self-respect of who you are, developing your knowledge, right? So that you can help others, and actually developing yourself so that you feel that level of confidence and ability to help others grow as well in a servant leadership model. And then wealth to me is in two areas. One is financial wealth, which I think is the thing that most people understand. And there's really a kind of a spiritual or a self-wealth of how do you feel with yourself. And today, with regard to positive intelligence, I'd like to talk about the items that are highlighted here, which is primarily mental fitness, respect for yourself, and then really developing yourself in such a way that you can become a better leader, a better person, a better spouse, a significant other, or parent. I think all of this fits in very, very well for people that are developing their emotional and positive intelligence. So this gentleman by the name of Shirzad Chamine, if anyone has heard about him, he has written this book called Positive Intelligence. Highly recommend it. Very easy read. He's taken a lot of very difficult concepts and made them understandable for the normal humans. And Shirzad has applied this to over 500,000 people. So as a recovering engineer and a scientist and a researcher, having that information to support this as opposed to, hey, here's an interesting idea, go out and try it, was very, very important to me. And if you dig into his research, there's some really very, very robust support for this. And positive intelligence is made up of really 4 areas that I think we've all been talking about, and a lot of people have done a good investment in time to try to figure one or more of these areas out. And what he has tried to do is try to kind of what I would call operationalize a lot of the difficult concepts and bring them together into a single source. So if you look at positive psychology, work that was done by Dr. Martin Seligman on positive psychology, or neuroscience, if anyone's read anything like Quiet Leadership by David Rock, talks about the importance of the neuroscience and how that really is important for you to understand to support your growth and development. There's the cognitive psychology. So this is one of the foundations here for positive intelligence around emotional intelligence. There's some work that was done by Daniel Goleman or Dr. Howard Gardner. And then the last one is performance science, which I thought was an interesting add when you're talking about developing your positive or emotional intelligence. And if you look at the books such as Peak or Peak Performance, written by authors such as Robert Poole, you'll see the importance of how designing performance and using performance science is so critical to develop yourself. And we don't often quite think about that. We think about it more from a psychological perspective, more so than a performance. And as a manager, as a leader, parent, so forth, that understanding performance and your performance science and being the best that you can be at all times, with the idea that sometimes you need to take a break, is critical. And that's what he has moved into, these 4 elements, to really create this one kind of single approach. I'm going to talk about at a very high level what this is. And if you go to the URL at the bottom, there are several videos that you can access from myself as well as from Shirzad himself. TED Talks, a great talk that he did about an hour long at Google. And from a high level perspective, there's really 3 elements that we need to focus on. His research has shown is that we have saboteurs in our brain. One side of our brain has these 10 saboteurs, and there's the controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, hyperrational, and the biggest one, which is the judge. It's that voice in your head that's continually saying, oh, you're not good enough, or you shouldn't be doing this, or that's too difficult. And you have these saboteurs that are talking to you in the one side of your brain. And on the other side of the brain, you have what he calls the sage. And the sage has really 5 elements that continue to build the sage. And one of the things that I found from my leadership coaching, as well as the leadership programs that we put together, is that too often a majority of the actions that we take in the world with our organizations, with our staffs, are driven and controlled by the saboteurs. So if we can get our, what Shirzad calls your sage brain, where you can tap into your empathy, your explore power, your innovation, your navigation, and really activating, which is actually doing the work, you can truly make a difference. The thing is most of us don't understand how to do this. And that's the key work that he has done that I think has been so powerful. So what he says is you need this centerpiece here, which is called your mental muscle. And I think about it as like an air traffic controller. It takes the information from the saboteurs, it takes the information from the sage, it acknowledges the saboteurs, because you want to be aware that the key is you don't want to spend all of your mental muscle fighting with them or letting them drive your behaviors and your actions. So let's talk a little bit about both, and then we'll take the next step. So if you think about this from an operating model, is the saboteurs really are the voices in your brain motivate you through negative emotions, fear, stress, oh, you have to do this, anger, guilt, oh, I should do this, shame, it's like, oh, if I don't do this, I'm going to look bad, insecurity. And I want you to ask yourself, as you're moving forward with your life and your career, are the saboteurs the ones that are guiding you? Or is the sage brain guiding you, which is you're using your empathy for others, that curiosity, your creativity is driving you to the next level, your passion or your purpose in life. If you can focus on the sage brain driving you, and just honest with yourself, if you can focus on your sage, then I think you can do great things. Ask yourself, are you listening to your saboteurs? Are you listening to your sage? And if your saboteurs are controlling your life and brain, then the good news is that we have a system, an operating system, using positive intelligence to help control that. I wanted to share with you my saboteurs. So I've gone through the program. I'm in the final phases of getting my certification to teach this. I'm actually running what we call a series of pods for people to learn together, because we do this in small cohorts of 4 to 5 people. And these are my saboteurs. Once I learned this, I can start acting differently to my work colleagues, people that work for me or with me, as well as my family. And my saboteurs are, I am what's known as a hyperachiever, right? So I think many people on the phone are probably the same, right? That we have to do more and more and more and be more successful. And there's lots of different things that can drive that. In addition to that, having the engineering background, I'm very hyper rational and a little bit restless, that I always wants to be constantly moving. I think my biggest learning was once I recognized that my hyper rational has a tendency to take over, is that my relationship with my wife and my children has changed. So rather than me jumping in as the problem solver and thinking about things rationally, I really try hard now to listen from my emotional perspectives, so that not only can I hear the words, but I can receive the message. And that's been a big advantage for me. The rest of the 10 kind of drop off pretty significantly with very, very low numbers. And it's focusing on the top 1 or 2 particular that really makes a change. And the good news is, if you go to the website at the bottom, you can click in and you can take the assessment. It takes like 3 or 4 minutes, and you can learn what yours are instantaneously. So I see we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So we're here at the 2 closing slides. So let's talk about what I've been mentioning as the operating system. So the PQ, or the Positive Intelligence Operating System, this is really the process. So identify your strength, get your PQ score. Shirzad says you want a score of about 75 as a target, where you have the 3 to 1. 75 says I have 3 times the sage power to combat the saboteurs, and that's a magic number that you need. Lots of really good research. If you've read any of work done by Dr. Richard Boyatzis, he has some awesome studies that support that. As I mentioned in the last page, your saboteur scores. I do a 6-week mental fitness cohort to strengthen your sage powers. We actually have somebody on the line. Thank you very much for joining us. That's just graduated from the cohort I'm sure that she would have some things to say from a positive perspective. I'm not going to put her on the spot. So we just finished one. We're starting a new one on Monday. So these are starting every 6 weeks. So if you'd like to join one of the cohorts, I'd love to talk to you about it. And then really build your mental fitness. And this is done through guided PQ smartphone apps. And if you've done mindfulness, it's really a structured mindfulness application. And I do that every morning. And it has made a difference. It's building that muscle, that air traffic control that I so need to help guide my sage work. And finally, ultimately, what's going to happen is you're going to develop what I would call, and Shirzad would call, a gift or an opportunity mentality. You really have to be honest with yourself. Do you look at the current environment with all the stuff that Wayne had talked about, all of the things that are playing on us and creating this stress and anxiety? Are you looking at it as a gift or an opportunity? The positive intelligence approach really helps you reframe it in a very caring and rational way that I think you have the ability to change your outlook without lying to yourself. On the site, if you want to answer any of these 10 questions, that'll help you whether you think that doing positive intelligence is a good investment of your time. So I would go to the site to do that. I'm not going to go through the questions. And in closing, if the program's right for you, I'd really love to have you send me an email. You can join me for one of the 4 to 5 person cohorts that we do start on a monthly basis. And if you don't think the program's right for you, that's okay. Do is I encourage you to take the free assessments, watch the video, spend the $20 and buy the book. I think you'll find it to be life-changing. The arrow there tells you where to get all this information. And my last image is from Benjamin Franklin, and I love this quote from him, which says, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." And if you really want to invest in yourself, if you've been stuck, if you've been moving from job to job, if you have been moving from company to company, or you're in a situation where you've been downsized or you're really not sure about what is next, invest in yourself, in your mental fitness, because doing all of the other things will be useful. They may not give you the results, particularly if you're doing them over and over and over again. And with that, I am done, and I have 21 seconds to spare.
Kevin, Bob here. I know you're a recovering engineer, and I understand why. By hearing Kevin and what he shared with you, you know why I love to collaborate with him. He's pragmatic, he's smart, he uses himself as an example. Thank you so much for Kevin for doing that, and also connecting with the theme and with the research that's been done by Wayne. I'm looking forward to our conversation in the panel. So thank you so much for doing a great job. And I'm going to ask Kinsey to introduce our next speaker. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bob.